Well, Mike, excited to have you on again today. Is this your third or second time? This might be your third time.
I
Second
think
time.
it's the third time.
Okay.
Third
For
time.
anybody that
Yeah.
hasn't listened to those previous episodes, you're missing out. Go back and listen to them. But introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and then we'll get into it.
Oh, wow. Do you have 30 minutes for me to introduce myself? Long story short, a lawyer, fraud investigator, turned agency owner, turned consultant for agencies and other service businesses. So I scaled three of my own agencies and then moved. And then people started asking me, like, what are you doing to scale them? And that kind of took me on a path of helping others. And I stayed on that path. I closed my agencies and I stayed on the path of helping others to scale agencies. Now I also work with other service-based companies, not only agencies, but agency is my kind of sweet spot or soft space in my heart because of the history.
And the thing you're really working on right now is helping people reach that 100K a month milestone, right? And one thing interesting that you've done, I'd love to kind of dive into a little bit more and just hear from you is, I know you have the 100K marker, but you have milestones or kind of a path to get there, and you break it down in a nice, like, foundational pathway that kind of makes sure that people are focusing on the right things.
Yeah, so 100K is really like that's really the magic. The magic is $83,000 per month. That gives you $1 million in a year. So that's why I kind of put 100K per month as a goal, as a promise, if you will, as a bumper sticker. But really, you're right. Like, we cannot just jump from making $5,000 to 100K and do exactly the same at different levels. And so when you're at 5K to 25K, you do different things. When you're at 25 to 50, you do different things. And then 50 plus, you do different things. And then if you're above 100,000, it's different as well. The reason why, and this is very, very important for a lot of people to understand, is the reason why you want to do it this way is what works when you have 5 clients and the problems that you have when you have 5 clients, and the systems that you have when you have 5 clients are completely different to where you're at $100,000 and you have 20 people on staff and you have 50 clients, right? So you should never, ever, ever focus on the same things that the aspirational agency or a business that you kind of follow is doing. If they're doing something on the internet when it comes to marketing, you probably should not copy what they're doing unless you're on the same stage, right? And so when you're on the lower end of things, it's more about finding your path, finding the right audience, finding the right offer, and slowly starting to seeing some patterns. And so that's the first kind of 5 to 25K mark, right? And this is probably where you have maybe a VA, maybe someone to help you out, a contractor. You don't have a big team, you don't have a lot of process, you don't have a lot of clients, but you start seeing some patterns in what's happening. And you should really step back and look at those patterns and see, okay, well, this is happening, that's happening. This is kind of a continued, situation for me. This is a common denominator. Should I start looking at optimizing those things? Because if you start optimizing too soon, like, there's nothing to optimize. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of, so it's kind of like two-sided story, if you will. I see a lot of agencies that standardize and productize too soon, and then on the other side of the spectrum, they wait too long, right? So it's a lot of customization, all the time, and they don't just have that productization and standardization approach. And then you have agencies or other businesses that are like 5 or 10K per month, and they go all in on SOPs, all in on ClickUps, all in on setups, all in on AI automation. Like, what do you want to automate? There's nothing to automate yet, right? So you have to be conscious about, like, what is it that will move the needle in my business? And the way to answer that question is to really look at your business from the helicopter view and see, like, what is the actual challenge that we're seeing, and what challenge do we want to fix? Because you have multiple challenges, obviously, at any given time, but you really need to see, okay, well, this is the big challenge that if we fix that will move the needle. If you're at 5K, having an SOP probably won't move the needle. Probably lead generation should be your focus. Right? And optimizing your offer, but not necessarily SOPs. Is that making sense?
Yeah, because everything follows sales, right? Hiring, processes, everything follows sales. One mistake I made early on was spending way too much time trying to build process and perfect it before we even sold it, right? And then ultimately, you burn a lot of time doing that, fear of failure, fear of messing up, and then you realize when you get into delivering the process, the client needs something else, or the client needs something else, right? So you end up having to go back and change things in the
Yeah, exactly. I think, my mantra is sell before you build. And that goes to anything that we do. And this is not for, to clarify, this is not about scamming people and selling something you cannot deliver on. This is selling something and seeing if I have traction. This is selling something, like you said, I'm going to sell this first and see what kind of processes I do have to have in place in order to deliver this thing, because I've never sold it before. I don't have that, history, that data. Mm-hmm. And same goes to marketing and how we do content as well. With content, sell the idea first, before you actually deliver things. Sell the idea of a lead magnet before you build the lead magnet. See if you have 50,000 comments or 5 comments, so selling before you build is something that is really powerful. And again, it's something that it's not about, pretending you can deliver on something. It's knowing I can deliver. I'm not building this yet because first of all, I need to see if I actually need this at all.
Yeah. And so that first milestone, what was the revenue marker you said for that? Is 0 to?
Yeah, so it's so it's around 5 to 25 or 0 to 25. That's the first milestone, okay. And then the other one is 25-50.
So for that 0 or 5 to 25, key things there. And actually, let me ask a question on that. 5 to 25. I think I've heard you say this before, but are you starting it at 5 for any particular reason instead of starting it at 0?
Well, if you're at 0, you don't have a business yet.
I feel like I've heard you say in the past, when you want to start freelancing, and don't let me speak for you, correct me if I'm wrong, when you want to start freelancing, it's always good to make sure you have 5K coming in before you leave your current work or your current job that way.
100%. I mean, if you don't make any money just yet, then there's no proof. You're not validated. Your idea is not validated. You don't have a product market fit. The 5K, the magical 5K, is where there's some traction happening. And for a lot of people, the $5,000 a month is something that can replace or pay the bills, mm-hmm. right, already. And so I wouldn't jump the ship because everyone now is doing AI agencies and stuff like that. You think you have a great idea, you probably do, but you need to see if there's traction with that offer and if you have product market fit. If you do, and that is validated, because people, when I say people, audience, anyone, market, will vote with the credit card or with the payment. So if you have an idea that's not validated, you don't have anything, it's just an idea. So if people are willing to, if your market is willing to actually pay for what you have to offer, then that is the way you validate. It's not with a wait list. It's not with conversations on LinkedIn with anyone. It's with people actually signing up and saying, well, and pay, and with your wallet, just voting for the fact that, hey, I want this in my business. So that's why the 5K is where it's at. Again, like you could think about 0, but then 0, you don't really have a business. It's just an idea again. So yeah, I agree with all that. And I think, so I'll give you an example, and maybe we could just use that for at least this stage or this stage and the next. But I was talking with somebody recently. She's a great creative strategist. She's been a UGC creator. She reached out to me just looking for some insights on transitioning into building agency or freelancing. And she's working on her offer. Her idea is to train in-house teams brand side for creative strategy, right? Uh-huh. And so we were talking through that, and I was just kind of sharing some insights with her. And really my main advice before anything was just start getting on calls with people and try to sell it. Like just try to start selling this and focus on so the goal is to train in-house teams, right? But brand might be a pathway, but agencies probably have a higher opportunity to pay for this because they're delivering that as a service. So it might be beneficial to also look at agency as well. And I use that example to say, sometimes it's not that your idea is, if it's not working, it may not be the idea. It may just be how you package it and who you present it to ultimately that you could kind of tweak there. 100%. The thing is that we are, it's all about positioning. It's all about how you package. I am a product because I'm a consultant. I am the product, mm-hmm. right? I have my knowledge, experience, whatever. Tactics, frameworks, but I can package myself in wrap it around in different offers. So I can have a mastermind, I can have a workshop, I can have a 12 months program that I have, all these other things. I'm still the product. It's just a delivery and positioning and how I present myself is different. And then that can speak to different audiences. And that is a bigger kind of conversation. It's about positioning, it's about messaging and all those other things, because you, like you said, you might have a great product in itself, but if people don't understand what you have to offer, if they don't understand the value that you bring, if they don't understand that you can fix their problem, they will not buy it. So it's always that tricky, not tricky, but like that's the biggest challenge. As soon as you have the product market fit, and product market fit defined as there's a problem on the market and you have a solution for the market, and that market is willing to solve that problem for the price that you're asking for. Because very often, and I bring this analogy, or not analogy, it's an example of my dad, who's a little bit overweight, if you will. And so, and I'm on the other side of the spectrum of fitness. And I talk to my dad. I'm like, hey, Dad, I would love for you to come to the gym with me. I can pay for the whole year, whatever. And he's like, yeah, but I don't want to. So he knows he has a fitness challenge, if you will, but he does not want to do anything with it. So no matter what I do, I pay for his fitness for gym for the year. No matter what, my offer is not landing, because he is not willing. He has a problem, I have a solution, but he's not willing to change anything and fix that problem, let alone pay for it. Yeah. So we have to have that product market fit. And only then, when you are speaking the language of your audience, they see the problem, you have the solution, they're willing to do all these things, this is where you can say you have a validated offer, and this is where you should add, and this is where you probably hit that 25,000 mark, and this is where you should add those additional elements that only kick in at 25K. This is where you should think about ads, for example. Because when you're making 5K or 10K, I see so many people making that mistake. They throw money on advertising, which is a mistake. Instead of doing that, like you suggested to your guest, you should actually get on as many calls, as many conversations on LinkedIn, and talk to your audience and see, hey guys, like what's going on? How can I help? What kind of problems do you have? What kind of challenges do you have? And then from that kind of from that understand what you can actually offer to them so that it sticks.
Yeah, and to kind of take your example of your dad and that situation there and kind of package it a little bit differently for agencies or for services types companies, one thing that might be worth calling out as well before we move on to the next stage of the 25 to 50 is, when you're in the sales process, if it takes the person you're selling to having to leave the conversation to figure out how they're going to implement your service into the business or how they're going to change things around to make it happen, it's probably not going to stick and they're going to have a hard time closing. So it's taking a service and making it so turnkey or so ready to go that the person who's making the decision only has to think about the financial aspect and not who they're going to move and what they're going to change and what they're going to do to work with you that way.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't want to give people homework.
Yeah.
When they buy, it's like, you get an accountant and they tell you, well, fill out this KYC form and do this and that, and connect
and then do that.
Oh my God, no! I hired you to take this off my plate, not to add to my plate. And I've had, and I'm sure like a lot of people can relate from with that, because it's so hard to find a good accountant that understands your business and is good with processes. Because like I had accountants who would just put so much on my plate, like, oh, can you get us this statement, that statement? I'm like, I'm gonna give you access to my bank account, everything. Like, I want you to take care of this whole thing. At the end of the month, just let me know what had happened, where we stand at the quarter, let me know, and then at the end of the year, let's have a conversation. And that's it. That's like, because if you ask me to upload and fill out a form every single month, well, what are you doing actually then? Right? So whenever we sell a service, we cannot make it so that it feels like it's work for a client. Your onboarding process, that's very important. Like if you are asking a client to fill out 10 forms before you even started, like that already feels very heavy, right? So you have to optimize your onboarding process. And then if you are getting, on calls and you're asking them all the other questions, like it just feels so heavy, and you don't buy that. You buy a solution, you buy excitement, you buy, what happened is going to be that, and I'm sure you can relate to this as well, like especially when you have sales and delivery teams separate, you get on a sales call and you excite your lead, you excite your client, like we're going to do this and this and that. And then you take them and introduce them to the delivery team, and they throw 55 different forms at a client, and like, they're like, The excitement is gone. Now it feels like work. And I'm not saying your client shouldn't work. It's a partnership. They have to obviously deliver and all these other things. You cannot work without assets, yada, yada, all that stuff, 100%. But the way you make them feel is super important. This just cannot feel like additional work for them. This has to feel like, hey, it's an exciting project. We're getting somewhere. We're seeing these results. This is the reason why we do this.
Yeah, that's very important. And to make sure, I mean, the sales process doesn't end when they close. It continues for the first 90, 180 days for sure, just to make sure that they continue to have confidence in the team and have confidence in delivery as well. And, as we look at the next milestone, that 25 to 50K, I feel like this is a stage where agencies can not flatline, but plateau a bit or get stuck, right? Because this is where, for most agencies, if you don't have a very high ticket deliverable, 10K plus, things like that for one single client, this is where team starts to be built out and agency owner needs to start taking hands off of operations and team needs to start growing. And there's a lot of different moving parts and dynamics. So it can be easy to get stuck in this area here. So what are the main things you focus on in this range?
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, this is where we have to optimize what we do and how we do things. This is where we have to start looking at getting a team. This is where we have to looking at automating things as well. This is the DAD formula, delete, automate, delegate. So you have to start looking at all the other things, or moving parts in your business that you've been doing up till now, but you've been more in the freelancing mode probably, right? So you were in a position where you could randomly do things the way you want them to be done, and it wouldn't crash at all because it's you are in charge. But all of a sudden, when you have a team, you cannot just randomly do things. There has to be a process. There has to be a consistent way of how you deliver things. And so that DAD process, be a DAD, right? So delete, automate, delegate. So you look at the tasks and you do a bit of an audit of like, what are we doing in our business? And this is on the back end of a time tracking exercise. So you do a time tracking exercise, you and the whole team, to understand what's going on in the business. And then as the result of that time tracking for 2, 3, 4 weeks, you look at all the tasks that are in the business and you kind of scan through them top to bottom to see, is there anything that we're doing that we shouldn't be doing? Like, can we delete something? And if we remove that piece, are we still going to deliver the results for the client? If yes, then why the hell are you doing this at all, right? So that's one. Number two, if you cannot delete it, see if you can automate it. Because obviously automation and kind of now use of AI and assistants and stuff like that is way better than delegating that to someone else. And delegation is the last piece where, okay, well, we cannot delete it. We cannot automate it. It's too custom. It's whatever. We need to delegate this to someone. And then this is where you have to hire people. This is where you have to identify who's the best fit for that role and all these other things, right? But that starts with that. So at 25, 50K, this is all about growing in a optimized way. So looking back a little bit of like what I've done in the business, what I have delivered, and trying to optimize that, delivery or whatever you're doing. Any of the processes that are in place, you just have to start looking at optimizing them.
Yeah. And this is where, I mean, at this stage in your business, you still want to be moving very fast. I'm not saying you slow down like 100%, but this is where especially if you're going like I did from the freelancer to building a team, you can move as fast as you can move on your own when you're freelancing, and you can change things in a day. You can change things in a weekend. It's very easy. You can still build processes and things over the weekend. But as you're looking at things like time tracking for the whole team, and you're looking at optimizing processes off that, sometimes you need to slow down to speed up. And these things do take a little bit more time. You can't properly estimate tasks for workload forecasting if you don't know how long it takes your team. And so it could take 4 to 6 weeks, like you're saying, to start doing that time tracking. And you may have one team member that takes 2 weeks to actually start tracking time correctly, right? And those are just things that you have to start accepting and working with as you're growing, because you can't work on your own wavelength anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to embrace the fact that you're no longer the one who can pull, a 16 hours day to catch up on things, whatever, because there's team and it's a completely different dynamic there. One other thing I wanted to kind of go back a little bit to when it comes to getting more clients, because this is where you get more clients, and the sales process, like you said, the sales process doesn't end when you sign the contract. It actually continues. And that is a massive part of scaling, because a lot of agencies, businesses in general, they will focus on getting more clients, new clients, and they keep forgetting about serving the existing client. And that's a massive mistake. There's data that shows it costs you 5 to 25 times more to get a new client versus keep an existing one and upsell them, and or just increase the LTV. 5 to 25 times more. If you think about all the effort and the work that you have to put in and the time spent into finding, closing, and onboarding a new client, you will learn, and we have done this through this exercise with tens of agencies. You will see that for the first 4 to 6 weeks, you're actually not making any money because of the labor that you have to put into all the assets and onboarding and getting this ready and that ready and access to this tool and that tool, whatever. Yes, you're being paid, you have cash flow, but you're not making any money. So it's way better to think about the experience that your customers and clients have with your business, and try to expand that footprint that you have with different services or bigger scope, whatever it is, or at least a length of the contract, than it is to constantly look for a new client coming in, because that is a completely different, set of problems when you have a new client, right? So just wanted to clarify on that as well, because I think too often people just focus on that, getting new clients, lead gen, always be closing, sure, like always be delivering. That is very important too.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as like D2C agencies, we always push with clients like, we need lifetime value, we need average order value, but we need lifetime value, so we need to get more retention and stuff like that. We can't keep everything on front end with Facebook ads like we used to. And
right?
What about our businesses? Right? Like, what about our businesses as well? Because it's not as easy to get clients for Facebook ads today as it was 5 or 10 years ago, right? Like at all. It's now different services and different things like that. So yeah, I completely agree there. And I think one other thing that is important, especially from the agency owner perspective, if you went from freelancing to building a team, is just that reprioritization of productivity, which is used to, when you're freelancing, productivity is getting client work done. Productivity is making sure ROAS or CPA is good. As you're building team, productivity is keeping team momentum up. Productivity is recruiting new team members. Productivity is sales calls. Productivity is having one-on-ones with team. Like, it's a completely different shift. And you have to make sure that what you signed up for, which is building an agency and building a business, is really what you want to do.
Right. That's why I get so many clients at the 25K mark, where they are in that growth mode of like hiring people. And you know this, like we've worked together on hiring. Like hiring is such a interesting adventure, right? It's always it's very tough. It's time consuming, it's expensive, and it's
assurance in it. Like there's no 100% guarantee in it.
No, there's always a 50-50, no matter what you do, really. I mean, obviously you want to optimize so you're not getting, kind of bad apples, but it's just hard. And so I get so many founders who are at 25 plus K, they're already burnt out even before they actually scale to any, decent amount of money a month. They're already burnt out after 2 years of working. So they left their 9 to 5, they opened an agency, they have good results as a freelancer, they start building a team, and 25K hits, and I'm like, Mike, I'm burned out. What do I do? And that's one of the key questions that I asked them. I'm like, hey, listen, to scale to 50, 100K, whatever, and up, this is what it means. You will need to have these things in place. Probably you will need to have a bigger team. Depends on the business model, depends on the offer, stuff like that. But like, it probably will mean you have to have a bigger team. And that means the dynamic is different. That means all of a sudden, from delivering to the client and being close to the client and being the loved one, you are the one who has to be the loved one by your team. You have to take care of the team. You have to take care of their sick leave. We have to take care of the drama. All of a sudden, your role in the business changes. And if you are not up for it, you're not prepared to do that, then we have to think about different ways for you to scale, because scale is not good for everyone in that sense.
Yeah. Well, I know we're coming to the top of our call, and we have not covered milestone 3. So we might have to leave this on a cliffhanger. Let's schedule a second recording because you have milestone 3, which is 50 to 100K. And I know you also have some interesting things on power activities that can happen at each stage of growth as well to make sure that things are operating properly.
Correct. Yeah, let's do that.
Well, we'll have a part 2 coming shortly after this episode. Mike, thanks for coming on, and we will cover those next pieces at a later date.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me again. See you soon.